Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here, as always, to take your sources and really pull out the key insights, giving you that shortcut to feeling informed. Today, we're tackling something pretty significant, the ongoing tensions between India and Pakistan, but specifically, how the ripples from that are felt right here in the UK. We've got research notes, expert analysis, all sorts of stuff to go through, and I'm joined by our expert who's fantastic at, connecting these global dots. Okay, let's unpack this.
Great to be here. Yeah, it's quite striking how historical issues, things from way back, still really shape communities today, even far away.
Definitely. So maybe to start, where do things stand right now between India and Pakistan? What's behind the latest flare-ups we're hearing about?
Well, the baseline is decades of tension, really going back to the partition in 1947. You've got the history of wars, and of course, Kashmir. Kashmir isn't just land. It's tied up in identity for both sides. It constantly shapes how each country sees itself and fuels a lot of anxiety, especially in diaspora communities. What's made it worse recently? I'd say it's a mix. Political speeches, military moves, and also these communal incidents, clashes between different groups on the ground there. It creates this sort of dangerous feedback loop. Nationalism is huge in India's politics right now, and, well, anti-India feeling can sometimes be a unifying thing in Pakistan's complex political scene.
Right, so these internal political dynamics kind of feed off each other, making it super hard to cool things down. And it's pretty sobering how quickly that stuff, happening thousands of miles away, can spill over onto the streets here in the UK. We've seen it, right? Birmingham, Leicester, London too. What does that actually look like when it happens here?
Yeah, we definitely see communities here mobilizing. People with roots in India or Pakistan, and often younger generations too, organizing protests, marches, sometimes counter-protests. Leicester, for example, saw some really serious unrest directly linked back to events overseas. Even second or third generation British Asians often feel a very strong connection. It's passed down through families, the stories, the identity, even if they've never lived there. So, and there's violence back home or leaders say inflammatory things, the reaction here can be really powerful. Most protests are peaceful, obviously, but things can escalate. There was a protest outside the Indian High Commission in London last year, I think August. That one did get aggressive.
And this mobilization, it's not happening in a void, is it? Social media must play a massive part. How central are platforms like WhatsApp, Twitter, TikTok, and all this for organizing, but maybe for making things worse too?
Oh, absolutely central. Crucial. They're incredibly fast for getting people out to protest. But yeah, the flip side is they're also massive vehicles for misinformation. You see old images, videos from totally different places being shared as if they're happening right now, right here. It happens all the time. And the way the algorithms work, they tend to show you stuff you already agree with, creates echo chambers. So people get locked into one view, maybe based on false information, and it makes it really hard to have a factual conversation once emotions are high. Authorities are trying to manage it, but it's tough.
I see. Given all these really intense reactions happening domestically, what's the UK government's official line? How do they respond?
Generally, Westminster tries to stay pretty neutral, cautious. They really want to avoid looking like they're taking sides in the India-Pakistan dispute. You do see some local council outreach, and MPs have spoken out, like Claudia Webb during the Leicester situation. But that official neutrality can be frustrating for people in the diaspora communities here. They often feel their specific worries, maybe about human rights issues back home, aren't really being heard or validated.
Yeah, I can really see how personal this must feel. Have you spoken to people here in the UK who are directly affected by all this, by the protests, the tensions?
Yes, definitely. Quite a few. I remember one young Sikh man saying he felt really caught in the middle. He wanted to speak up for peace in Punjab, his ancestral region, but was worried about being labeled, an extremist. And another student from Pakistan telling me about his fears for his family back in Karachi because of increased surveillance there. So it's deeply, deeply personal. It's not just headlines. These are real people, real lives right here in our neighborhoods.
Looking ahead then, do you think these kinds of protests will just fade away eventually, or are they likely to change, to evolve somehow?
I think they'll evolve. You see UK youth getting more politically engaged, especially online, through digital activism. So I expect we'll see more protests that are maybe focused on specific issues rather than just national identity. Things like human rights more broadly, or climate change, maybe secularism.
Is there any movement towards more dialogue between the communities here? Any hope for that?
Yes, there is. It's maybe slow, but it's happening. You've got interfaith groups doing work, student unions trying to bridge gaps, and interestingly, even some TikTok creators trying to foster cross-cultural understanding. Some youth groups are doing joint charity events, cultural exchanges, that kind of thing. It's promising, even if it takes time.
Well, thank you so much for walking us through that. It's a really complex picture and often quite emotional, so I appreciate you bringing such clarity.
My pleasure. It was good to talk it through.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. The India-Pakistan situation, it's clearly ongoing. But seeing how strongly it echoes here in the UK is a real reminder, isn't it? That global events are never really over there. They land right here, affecting communities, affecting individuals very personally. So what does this all mean for how we understand global events and our own communities, especially as protests evolve through digital activism and new forms of dialogue emerge? Something to think about the deep personal stakes in these big global issues. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.